Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Pranzata podcast. This is your host, Andrea Pranzatelli. This is episode number 77 on this podcast series on YouTube. Before we get into it, if you are new to this channel, this is a YouTube podcast where I interview musicians, comedians, and different artists from the Philly, South Jersey area. However, I am now branching out to Zoom virtual podcasts, so you will also see some people from New York and all around the country. So let me introduce today's guest. We have a female on the podcast. Finally, I've been begging for women to come on because comedy and music is very male dominated, which I'm sure she knows because she's a musician as well. Let me introduce her. Her name is Kathleen Kozak. She does a lot of things, so there's a lot we could talk about on here. She is a very powerful woman. She happens to be a powerlifter. She is super into philosophy. She's a musician. She runs her own business. She has her own music teaching business. She's currently writing a musical, which I'm like, there's just so much going on for her. And she also happens to be very passionate about the topic of relationships. And she's in a polyamorous relationship. 2 polyamorous relationships from what I understand. So there is a lot that we can unpack here. So first question for you, Kathleen, is actually from a listener. So I put up yesterday a thing saying that I was excited. Yeah. So we do have a listener who has some questions for you. We actually had 2 questions, but I'm going to save the other one for later. So the first one is by K Madden 462. He's a loyal listener to this podcast.
Awesome.
He wants to know, what can you do today that you were not able to do 1 year ago? I think
that's great.
Question. Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, okay. So I have a couple of answers for that.
Yeah.
So answer number 1 is, I've been the concept of my musical I've been working on for about 7 years, but I've only been actively writing the actual script, because I was just writing the songs, right? And sort of generally conceptualizing. But a year ago, so I have a date now. A group is going to do it at a theater, and it's going to be late summer 2024. So 1 year ago, I did not have that date. We didn't quite have the production organized enough to start planning for it. So that's number 1, 1 year ago. And then today I literally just saw the people who are going to do it. They do the West Deptford high school theater, and I saw them yesterday. So they literally confirmed all the stuff that we're doing for the musical. So that's 1. And then number 2, a year ago, I could not bench 148 or squat 181 or 281. I can squat 281, and then I can bench. My bench is 148. Didn't have those a year ago. So that's pretty cool.
Anything, because he wanted both of us to answer this question. So I was thinking this for myself, and I'm like, that's a hard question. I'm going to ask you first, and then I'll try to go over mine. Is there anything not physical? Is there anything philosophical or any lessons you've learned that have changed from last year that you didn't know? I'm trying to think of that for myself. So I'm wondering if you have anything.
Sure. Okay. So philosophically, yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. What have I been exploring? I mean, I thought it was so funny that you keep talking about Stoicism, because I think Stoicism is the ticket to peace and joy. And
I literally have not to interrupt you, but I literally have a question for you on my list later about Stoicism. So I'm excited to hear about it.
Obsessed with it. I love Stoicism. But let me think in particular. I'm an absolute, all of my free time, Andrea, is spent trying to understand the human experience, and figure out and I'm a teacher. I have a bunch of teenagers who come to me privately, and they want life advice, relationship advice, self-esteem advice. So I spend a lot of my free time, a gigantic portion of my free time is spent looking into this stuff. So for sure, there's going to be something emotionally or philosophical that I know now and didn't. Let me see if there's anything I actually learned from yesterday. Oh no, but
that's a good way to do it.
It was a year ago.
It doesn't have to be really exact. Okay. A day ago is fine.
Okay. Oh, I've been integrating two of my favorite philosophical razors that I was looking into within the year. So the first one everybody knows is Alchem's razor. And that's like whatever is the most likely or simple explanation is probably the right one. I've been sort of exercising that, but I've found a connection between Hanlon's razor and assertiveness. So assertiveness is something that a lot of us...
Sorry, before you continue to explain for the listeners, can you explain what a razor is? Because I actually don't know myself. I have no idea what that means.
So check it out. I love, this is great. So the philosophical razors are like rules in philosophy that you can like implement into your like problem solving and decision making. If you want to just, should I have an argument about this? You use a razor. Is this person lying to me? We use a razor for that. So the razors are just like rules of thumb for debating, contemplating, understanding, discussing, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So Alchem's razor is the one that says whatever's the simplest explanation is likely the right one. So the movie Contact, I don't know if you saw that, they use Alchem's razor in that. She says, she was like, oh, the thing worked where you like actually like put me in space, and I spent some time there, and I was talking to this entity, but they have on Earth, they have a recording of her just going through this portal immediately. And they're like, okay, well, none of that happened because you went from here to here. But then they found like 25 hours of like static on her recorder. It was interesting, but everyone was like, there's no way that you went to like heaven or like space and talked to an entity, right? And she was like, no, I did. They were like, Alchem's razor, there's no way. So that's a cute example of that in a movie. Now, the one that I really enjoy that I've been using for the last year, and I taught my students this too, is Hanlon's razor. Hanlon's razor says, never attribute malice to what is more easily explained by stupidity.
I like that. It's that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, because I feel like I can 100% relate to that, because I feel like I've always been somebody who's like pretty defensive in my life. And when someone does something hurtful to me, I sort of think the worst of it. Like I have this like they're out to get me type of perspective, but that has been changed for me lately. I've been trying to, not that like the way people, if they do harm to others, not that it's excusable, but it's not always personal. It's not always like everybody's going through their own, like I've heard 100%. People before, everybody's going through their own journey, and everybody's human and everybody's messed up. Like we're all kind of like, we all have our own problems really. So I've been trying to like apply that to my life myself, is like when people do something that hurts me, trying to understand that it could just be stupidity or like whatever issue they're going through. Ignorance. Yeah. They're distracted. They're not thinking. Right. So 100%, Andrea. So I think a lot of us can find some severe peace in that notion. Because I mean, and this we can apply this to like the antidote to passive aggression, right? So passive aggression, we have two sides of this. We have this very passive side. I'm not going to get into my feelings. I'm not going to unpack them. I'm not going to talk about them. I'm not going to bring them up. A lot of like discussing problems takes courage, right? And you have to sort of figure out a way to discuss it. And then on the other side, there's aggression, right? Where we're instantly accusatory, incendiary, like angry, presumptuous, fine. So somewhere in the middle is this beautiful sort of like a philosophically delicious middle ground, which is assertiveness, right? And this is where we can apply a lot of the philosophical razors to say, oh, I bet that person didn't quite mean it that way, but I'll ask them, oh, this person hurt me. Is there another reason that they could have done that? And then if we want to talk about our issues, we say, hey, I feel a type of way about this. You probably didn't mean to do this, but how do you feel about this? And then if the person wants to be assertive back, which you should assume they're going to be, they'll say, oh, I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I was just thinking about this, this, and this. And we go, sure, of course you were. Hanlon's razor, right? Not a and I'll substitute. What do you personally do in situations where you do your part of being assertive and you really do a good job and you do your best, and you assume the other person is going to be it's going to be toasty, right? But they're aggressive back. How do you handle situations like that?
Well, cutie pie, do you know what that does for me? That tells me you're probably not going to be a good friend of mine. I'll literally just be like, okay, this is somebody to keep at arm's length, right? Because if you're going to be and I'm 37, right? Like, in my social life, a reason why I would be comfortable talking about polyamory is because my social life is so lovely. I'm like, who wouldn't want to hear like how one could discover like this like peace and equilibrium in your social life? So like, if you're somebody who's gonna act like, if that's like your MO, right? If you just like come out swinging, especially when people come up to you with this sort of like vulnerable courage and they say, hey, this made me feel this way, what do you think about that? If you like shit on that courage, can I curse? I'm sorry, should I not curse?
Oh yeah, no, you can say whatever you want. This is like,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if you can't respect that in somebody, if you can't notice like, oh, this person is like trusting me that they can come to me and talk to me about something, your problem, that would tell me like you're not a great friend. Like, I'm probably not going to jump on like being your buddy.
A lot of what you said resonated with me because that had been a problem with me continuously for years, where I didn't know the middle ground of assertiveness. I would bottle up my feelings for years and years. And then the day that I was ready to say them, they would just boom. So I had to go to therapy to like work those issues out. And then one thing I found was that like, when I finally was doing my part to be assertive, not everybody was assertive back. Like, some people would do the blow up thing. And it was always really difficult for me to figure out how to handle that. Cause it's like
100%.
It's like, okay, I can't really necessarily fault them because in the past I would blow up too. So I don't necessarily want to be judgmental towards these people because we all have our problems. But at the same time, it's like, that's always been like an issue for me, figuring out when is the time to cut someone off versus
100%.
Versus give them the benefit of the doubt or some like patience.
Absolutely. I totally, that's like my lifelong, like struggles in my 30s, I think. And then a lot of this is our parents' fault, Andrea, like I didn't have a great childhood. Like, my parents didn't want kids. My dad was like chasing like JCPenney, like promotion. So we moved all over the country. I went to 5 elementary schools and 2 high schools, and I lived in like 12 houses. It was like, and my parents didn't have a great relationship. And then my sister is a very sick puppy, like a very emotionally sick, like all 4 cluster B personality diagnoses, like bad.
So
stuff.
what would the cluster B personality diagnosis, like what would those be?
So that's a lot of the scary stuff. So that's like antisocial, which is like psychopathy, borderline, histrionic, and narcissistic. So a lot of those things have like crossovers, and those are usually like, if we look at like the prison population, people who have committed violent crimes, there's like 80% of them have some sort of like narcissism or like issues with psychopathy. And what that means, essentially, a lot of them, that means their frontal lobe is not functioning properly. So if we put them in an MRI and we showed them like pictures of like things that would make the rest of us like melt, they don't have any reaction. And then a lot of them also lack insight. So it's like all egosyntonic, which means they like how they feel, right? Where the rest of us are like, oh my God, how are you even putting up with being you, right? And they're like, I feel great. I'm the one who's right. So they don't even seek therapy either. So my sister's a very big issue. But what this means is like, I would have never had 2 milliseconds to study assertiveness or like boundaries like this, and all of this ties together, Andrea, right? Like boundaries, assertiveness, and then like having like a sort of steadfast understanding, like I did my part in this situation as lovingly as I could, and this is where Stoicism comes in. I can't control what this other person is doing, so I have to relinquish,
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Wow. Okay, so I do have some more questions for you. Some of these are related to this, so we'll get back to this. So the next question is writing a musical. So I think I've never met a person who's writing a musical in my entire life. So I just want to know why. So what made you decide that you wanted to write a musical?
Okay. And this is so fun. I'm so excited. Oh my gosh. And you and I have so much in common. I was just like, girl, my baby. Okay. So, so first off, I have a degree in music composition from University of the Arts. And I decided not to go back to college. So instead, I have a bunch of like kind of very prestigious private teachers who I'll hit up for whatever my needs are. I have a piano teacher, I have multiple singing teachers, engineering teachers. I take Japanese. I have a powerlifting coach. I have a dietitian. I have a PT. I have so many mentors. I
That's
just
so
collect
funny.
them.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I have
No, go
that in
ahead.
common with you too. My only issue is that I can't really afford them, but like
I can't afford them as much as I want them either, but that's okay.
But I have like,
we space them out.
I had to unfortunately cut some out because I couldn't
Yeah.
afford them all. But right now I have a singing coach. I feel like because I have a degree in piano, I can kind of coach myself at this point with piano, or like find YouTube coaches and everything like that. But singing, I didn't study singing formally, so I do have like a vocal coach. Yeah.
That's cool. And your degree's in piano. That's freaking excellent.
But anyways, to go back, I just wanted to let you know that.
That's
but
amazing.
Go back to
I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So like songwriting and like composition, I didn't have to like get into that to learn how to do this. But here was the actual, so the musical is about the murder of Travis Alexander. Jodi Arias, who is a decently attractive, she was decently attractive, like nutcase from Wairika, California, which is right on the Oregon and California border.
Okay.
And she killed Travis in 2008. They met in 2006. He was a Mormon.
Is based on a real story, or
this is a 100% real story.
Okay.
This is a real story. So, and I've always been kind of interested in true crime, but not the way it's presented on like the ID channel where they like sexualize and dramatize everything. They're like, she was hoping that she met the love of her life, but she was dead wrong. I was like, no. I don't like any of that, right? I don't like exploitation of this. So as I was like learning about this case, and when I say learning, I mean, I bought every single publication, read every single publication. I've seen every single interview, all 181 hours of the court several times. Like, I'm so disgustingly well studied on this. It's absolutely pathetic. But the reason for this was because I was interested in like what I believed were the true motives for this. So Travis was a Mormon. He really wanted like a sexy blonde like wife, but she had to be like a virgin, right? Not somebody to make him feel sinful, right? Because they have the law of chastity. But here comes Jodi, very sensual, totally comfortable with sex, but then also very like manipulative. And if you like reject her, she's going to stalk the ever living bejesus out of you. So he had this Madonna whore complex. She wanted to get married to him. He wasn't going to do that because she like had already had sex with him, right? And that means she's not wife material. So this became very toxic, and then and then of course, like when you have tension like that and forbiddenness like that, like you come and then you're like, oh, fuck you, and then you're like, no, we have to separate, and then so she killed him 2 years after she met him. She killed him, and she fancied herself a photographer. She took these beautiful pictures of him in the shower, and then like 3 seconds later, like stabbed him 27 times, and she slit his throat and she shot him in the head. All of his friends implicated her. She told a bunch of bullshit stories, and then since then she's been sentenced to life in prison in Maricopa County, Arizona. So what I thought would be interesting is since the case interested me, I thought it would be cool if I tried to write something that was non-exploitative, absolutely as truthful and warm and understanding. I wanted to write something that if the victims, I totally stalk, like I like Travis's and Jodi's, like I know them like on social media. I've never friended them. But just in case it got around and any of them ever heard or saw any clips from this, I want them to say, oh, thank you, Kathleen, for writing a very loving story about Travis, who's not I think there's no exploitation in here. So I thought it would be interesting if I could take my like passion for this case and then my passion for like the elements that made this thing happen, like sexual repression, obsession, low self-esteem, right? And then like Travis's parents sucked. I think it's interesting if we look at like the cause and effect from bad parents. And then we have someone who was born bad. Like Jodi's parents were fine, but she was always like stalking, stealing, espionage, creeping into people's like diaries and email addresses and stuff. She was always doing stuff like that. So we have someone born good with a bad life and then someone born bad with a good life. And I was like, this is all very interesting. So I thought that I would have I thought that I could compile this into like a juxtaposition-y sort of like where we have like these dark themes with beautiful music, with like a lot of it's going to have these like the dancing is going to be like not like it's going to be like sort of modern, think like sort of like undulating, like a lot of like sexual energy, but like nothing actually overtly sexual or violent.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I thought the juxtaposition would be cute. And then in addition to that, I knew I would feel good about not exploiting Travis and then actually blaming Jody, because there are people who are like, free Jody Arias. I'm like, ew, no.
So, okay. So what I'm gathering why you want to do this, it's, well, first of all, you went to school for music composition. So this is your outlet, but you're also using your musical skills to actually send a bigger message through this, which 100%. I think is really cool. I have a lot of comedians on my podcast too, and I always ask them why they do comedy. Like, I'm like, why do you do comedy? And I get a mix. Some comedians come on and say like, I just like it. I don't have any special reason. Right. But then I have some comedians who kind of say the same thing. They're like, I want to point out world issues and point them out through my art. So I think that's pretty cool that you're taking that approach. I think that's incredible.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. I think it'll be cool. Everyone in my studio and like the center stage who's doing it in West Deptford, everyone's excited, and I think everybody has like a good feeling about it, because again, it's not this exploitative, gross, like just like, oh, I like saw a couple documentaries and like I just threw this together. Like I researched oh my God, I know the creepiest things about these people. Like I researched it so much because I wanted to do like a thorough job. And if anyone even took a second and like looked through the lyrics or like listened to any of the themes, I think they would know that this was made with love and this was made with a positive message.
What about, so you're saying you kind of have like a little mini obsession with this case. What about this case spoke to you or drew you in? Like where did this, obsession, not to call it obsession, but where did it?
No, it's okay.
Like, why,
Sure. So again, I think I have a big interest in like, things like sexual repression, like not knowing oneself. I think it's interesting to look at like there's like clearly like religions and faiths and cultures that like that are like anti-intimacy, anti-sex, anti-education, like sex ed, all this stuff that it totally results in just horrors in the human race. So this one had like something especially that I can like relate to, like I'm also a girl in their 30s who is who's in relationships. Like I was like, okay, I can probably relate in some ways to like how this, I'm an extrovert, right? I like to meet people. I'm very like comfortable and like intimate, like quickly. So I was like, okay, I can understand some of these dynamics when you like meet up with people and there's like a spark but you don't live nearby and you're on the phone. That's how I conducted most of my friendships growing up, right over the phone. I was just like, I have a lot of insight, I think, into like what made this relationship very delicious. And then ultimately what made it like kind of come down. So I just felt, and it's not like I don't like other cases. Like I am very interested in like, well, basically I would say just like the human experience, behavior, psychology, like cause and effect, like family dynamics that can cause I'm also like, I like patterns. Like I just want to see, and this is kind of cute. I have like a little puppy dog brain, right? So I don't have any violent thoughts. I don't have like, if you were to swim in my brain, you'd be like, it's just butterflies and rainbows in there. Like it's just so it's interesting for me to sort of see from a more neutral, like fairy alien standpoint of like, oh, this is where we can get ugly. These are where emotions can get ugly. This is where violence can happen. I've never done anything violent or anything like that. So it's very, again, kind of like a seeking wisdom study where I'm like, okay, teach me where shit can get ugly, because this is all just pumpkins in here. So,
no, it makes sense. Like, I mean, it's the same reason, like, as shameful it is to admit, it's the same reason why people, when they see a car accident, they stop and look. Like they don't necessarily want you know, they don't necessarily want to see that, but the human brain can't help but be curious by what it doesn't know. You know what I mean?
And I think curiosity, this is where we need to use a little empathy with our curiosity, right? Curiosity is like, I mean, I'm definitely, I've done some shit for carnal knowledge, right? I'm like, that doesn't sound great, but like, I guess I should experience it because I'll be wiser. And then you're like, oh my God. So yeah, I think, yeah. Now what I think the difference there is if you look to say, I hope that person's okay. I wonder what could have caused this accident, and are people coming to aid this person? I think that's okay. Now, if we do the other thing, like, oh, I'm glad that person got hurt today instead of me. I bet that person's a shitty driver. I bet that person, like, oh, everyone's day is fucked up. If you're thinking about it grossly, like, I don't think that's cool. But if it's all like neutral, like, oh, I hope that person's fine. I wonder what the situation was. I wonder if there was anything like wrong with their cars and that I could have avoided. Like little thing. I think that is where curiosity is really beautiful. Just like sort of quiet, discerning, questioning, like rationale, that's fine. And then when we add this like judgment factor where we're like using our ego, like, well, at least I didn't have that happen to me today, I'm a good driver. Like, I think that's a little grosser. That's where it stops.
That makes sense. Okay, so my next question for you here. You have your own music business. I have my own music business. So that's something we have in common. In your opinion,
there's so much in common.
What is the benefit of having your own business? Why do you prefer having your own business versus working for another person?
Oh my gosh. I think you'll totally agree with me on this. So, I have a really nice answer for this. So, okay. So when I graduated college, my future father-in-law, because I married Michael a couple of years later, my future father-in-law, he's a professional percussionist. And then he was like a music teacher, and then he was a principal. And then he like got his like PhD in like administration. So then he was like a superintendent, and like now he's consulting at Drexel. So he sort of took some of the similar like musician to teacher and then teacher to like a slightly higher up, right? He took that same path, and he was telling me right when I graduated, he was like, start teaching and see if you like it. So I got my substitute teaching license, and I started working at Old Town Music, which are you from around here, Andrea?
I just moved here, so no, I haven't. Okay. I still need my GPS just to go to like ShopRite. Like I still haven't figured my way out.
welcome, honey bunch. So, okay, cool. So I started working at it's a music retail rental lesson franchise. There's 3 locations. It's kind of run by the small business owners you don't want to be around. So the main owner, like they were like the only people who had like DJ rental equipment for weddings, like in the 80s. And then he married this woman who like really is just grade A narcissist in my opinion. And she doesn't have any experience in music or teaching, but she's like, I'll run the lesson business. And then she would like only hire, like, so they would only hire like people with degrees in music. So they only hired like people who were like in the field, like legit. And then they would like underpay them and like kind of treat them like shit and like steal their curriculums. It was just like, and then they didn't respect the teacher student relationship. So like one of my coworkers, he was a guitar teacher. He started nursing school and he was like, I just need to come in 30 minutes late on Monday. She fired him and then just replaced his, like, so his kids that didn't tell the kids, his kids come in that day for their like 3:30, their 4:30. They have a new teacher. Nobody called him nobody called him. Or nobody called them, and they were like in tears. I had like his kids in my arms. I'm like, come here, sweetie. I know. Like they didn't understand that in the private teaching sector, this isn't like a school district where there's like rules and like standard. Like these are like one-to-one connections with people who are it's going to be more than just I teach you music. They're going to ask you questions about their life. They want to share a funny dream they had with you. They're going to want to share what they did in school if they have problems with their friends, yada, yada, yada. Other interests, of course. So she didn't understand any of that and didn't care. So I was working there for 3 years. And then I was a long-term music sub in Runnymede for a while, which is really close to where I am exactly right now. And I was like, okay, I really like teaching and I really would not be interested in like, I can't really do anything like that's like insincere. So if I would be very unable to like sell myself and then like go on the road and then like tour and like not have like all the, like, you know, I eat really nicely. I have meal prepped food all the time. Like I need to train every other day at minimum, like, you know, I train 4 days a week. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go on tours. Like, I'm not going to be doing this stuff. I'm not going to like pay to play. I hated doing that. So I was like, okay, I think the teaching is probably the right place to go. So Michael and me bought our house in 2010. And, this was all sort of culminating. Some people were leaving Old Town and opening like brick and mortar things. And they were like asking me to like buy in. And Michael, my husband, is so freaking smart. Oh my God, I'm obsessed with him. He's a programmer at ATL. He does research and development at ATL, Lockheed Martin, which he likes. He says they don't do anything shisty, like they don't do any war crimes or anything there. So I was like, okay, cool. So anyway, so he's very, very clever. So he was like, I think let's just get you an LLC and we can just do this in the house. And I was like, okay, all right. So I left Old Town Music. I had about 30 kids come with me. You're not supposed to do that, but you can. They can't. The non-compete is inadmissible in court. Plus these kids, like, we love each other. Like, you're not stopping me from teaching them. They get to pick who they want to work with, right? So that was in 2010. And then I got the LLC in like 2013 or 14. So I literally just work out of my house. And then the kids come to me and make my own schedule. I'm a like total neat freak. So like, it's like pretty easy for me to like keep the house in a condition where the kids can just pop in. I always have like little treats. Like I have like protein muffins and little egg bites and like, you know, I have coffee and tea for them, like anything they want. So I wanted to run something, and oh my gosh, thank God I didn't get a brick and mortar, Andrea, because COVID would have killed me.
I feel like an idiot, but I actually don't know what a brick and mortar means, because you said that.
Like, that means if I have a building, like if I rented out a building to use for my business, and I just do it in my house. So the people who had these buildings, and then COVID happens. They're like, I'm bankrupt. I'm like, oh my God. I used my living room.
I can relate to a lot about what you said about wanting to work for yourself because you get to create your own schedule. When I started working for myself, it was actually it just kind of happened by accident. And then once it happened, I couldn't ever go back to working for other people. So I used to be a waitress in a restaurant.
It's exactly the same.
You were a waitress?
I was a waitress too.
Yeah, so I was a waitress at like Applebee's and like all these different restaurants. And what happened was I was studying piano in school, and I was waitressing to like help pay the bills and stuff like that. And then I ended up getting
That's what I did in college.
Yeah, I had a wrist injury. So I had severe tendonitis, and I couldn't play piano for a while. So that was pretty scary for me, because I was like, all my hopes and dreams were dependent on my health, like for my wrist and everything. Of course. What happened to me was I couldn't waitress anymore. I was in hindsight, this was all a blessing in disguise, because I don't know if I would have had the courage to start my own business. I didn't have an option. Totally. So like, I was like, fuck, I can't waitress. I can't be lifting plates, or else it's going to ruin my whole career. Like, I need to rest my wrist. Absolutely. What the hell could I do? Like, what could I possibly do? And then when I really thought about it, I tried working for Guitar Center for a little bit as like a desk lady, but even like sitting there typing this stuff on the computer was painful for my wrist. Yeah. So I was like, I'm fucked. What do I do? And then I thought about it. I was like, I guess I could like try teaching myself, because I could write my own schedule. So if I'm having a really bad day and my wrist hurt, I can cancel that day and rest. Like, so what ended up being like something that was literally the best solution for me at that time kind of fell into my lap. Once I did that, and the thing started like snowballing into like more and more students, and I eventually healed. I eventually got better and could play piano again. I think at one point I did try going to work for other people part-time just for extra income, because unfortunately I have a lot of student loan debt, and even making a pretty decent income off teaching isn't enough for me right now. So I've tried to do other things and like work. Bless you. God bless you, by the way. I've tried to like work other jobs and do other things, and I could never last. Like, I tried working for I also have a Spanish degree along with a music degree. Sick.
Oh my
And
God, my
I
girl.
tried, yeah, thanks. I used to teach Spanish in a school, like very briefly for some extra cash. And it once you work for yourself, it's really hard to go back.
It's hard to go back. I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's really hard to go back.
I actually, I have to admit, I work one day a week for a teaching company in Collingswood, New Jersey. And I only do it one day a week. They've asked me to do more because they're like, hey, we like you. Do you want to do more? And I'm like, honestly, I shouldn't even be working here at all. Like the only reason I do it is because I like meeting other teachers and like getting out of the house once a week. That's the only reason I do it. And that's the only downfall to me about teaching privately is that like, you don't really connect with other teachers. So I literally, just to kind of get that out of my system, once a week I work every Monday for Collingswood, but then I won't do any more. Everything else is by myself. Yeah.
Okay. I literally 100% feel everything that you said. Yeah, I know you end up being in the house a lot. And it's basically impossible to go back. Especially if you've seen like, so in Collingswood, where are you teaching in Collingswood?
It's funny. I've only been here a few months, so I don't even know the actual name. Let me look it up on my phone. I think it's just Collingswood Music. I don't think it's anything else, but I could look it up really quick.
Okay, cool.
Let's see.
Collingswood Music, yeah.
But it could be Collingswood Sound, Collingswood Music.
Do you like the people in charge of that?
Yeah, it's just called Collingswood Music. That's it.
Okay.
I love them. They're actually
awesome.
Like, and that's another thing compared to other music businesses,
like small business music. Yeah, small.
Yeah, I've worked for a couple. I don't want to name names on here, but I've worked for a couple corporate ones, and what I found was they were terrible to work for because they would charge.
They're disgusting.
They would charge the individual student like $80 to $100 per hour, and then they would pay the teacher $20 per hour. So like that's a thing for me. I'm not working for a private music company unless they do a pretty much 50-50 split. And I mean, I'm even willing to compromise like 45, whatever. But like, if it's that much of a difference,
disgusting.
I'm not doing that. So I really like the people I work for. They're incredibly kind. They're not strict about if you have to take a day off. They do a pretty much 50-50 split with the payment. Like
that's really nice.
No reason you should be paying your private teachers under $30 an hour. Like
it's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
No, that's disgusting. I totally agree with you. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so the payment, obviously that's like delicious. Like I remember getting 20 at Old Town and like now I charge like 60 and I'm just like, I'm not going back to that. And then also like a lot of them, like they don't know, like the policies they make are just like what they think they should make. And they're not like an individual, like toasty gesture to the family. So like they'll be like, you can only skip 2 lessons a year. And like I could be stricter with it. I could tell my family is like, hey, like I really rely on your income. So like I rely on these lessons. Like I could implement some stricter stuff, but because I didn't, the kids stay with me a lot longer. You know,
me too.
Like,
and I get to make 100%. Also, I want the flexibility myself. Like, you know what I mean? Because I'm somebody who, I was telling you, earlier yesterday, I struggle with depression. So there's some days where I can barely get out of bed. So like, I want to be able to, like, I don't want to take advantage of that either. Like, granted, I'm going to try to show up as much as I could. But if I have a day where I can't come into work, I want the flexibility to go both ways. So it doesn't seem fair to me to be like, you owe me X amount of days or else fuck you, if I kind of want the same flexibility as well. So I actually like having that relationship. And I find that as long as you have enough students on your roster, you're always going to be busy, even if somebody takes a day off. Like you're
absolutely. Absolutely. And I like being able to, I just text the families personally, right? I don't have to go through any other channels. I just text the family, hey, I need this time on this day. Can you do this and this Sunday? I'm going to be filming, yada, yada, yada. Can you come? Like, I love that. And then I like that they don't have, like, I love my students, right? Like, I think they're absolutely wonderful. It's all word of mouth. So most of my students are like friends with each other, right? And then we built like a little community. And, like I want them to come. When they come to me, I want them to feel good, like stress relief. A lot of them will come in. I had a fight with my parents. I broke up with my significant other. I make them some tea. They cry a little bit. We talk about some like maybe like little methods for like acceptance and communication and stuff.
Yeah,
And
no,
then
that's another thing working for other people. Like I said, when I worked for a school teaching Spanish, there wasn't really much room for that individualized
especially
relationship
in a school district.
Because I felt like everything, that's why I ended up leaving, because everything was focused on the paperwork. It was like I think I was doing Spanish lessons, but they also had me part-time doing some music lessons because the like subbing for the other music teacher.
100%.
And I remember like you couldn't really have that kind of bond with the teacher because it was like you need to record the lesson, submit it, and it was like it just all the pressure of like the paperwork took away from the actual connection. Like everything felt fake
100%.
and monitored, and like you have to make sure you're going over these things. You have to make sure he's doing this by the curriculum, by the handbook. And I'm like, that just ruins the whole experience. And not only that, but all this paperwork I was submitting, no one checks it. Like it's just there for this. It's just there for the state. And they don't actually pay the teachers to do the paperwork. They say they do. They're like, oh, we'll pay you for 10 minutes worth of paperwork. But I'm like, yeah, but you're requiring like 2 hours worth of paperwork. Yeah. So
such trash. All that like bureaucratic, like useless, like professional looking red tape. It's such garbage. I remember when I was at Runnymede, I was teaching the music class. It was like first grade to fifth grade. And then I had the middle school, and then I taught their choir too. And they were like, on like my first day, they're like, you can't hug any of the kids. I was like, if a 6-year-old is crying and wants a hug from me, they're going to get one. Okay. Like, they're like, no, you can't do this, this, and this. I had a girl, she was like, my sister died recently. She was like in third grade. And I was like, sweetie pie. And she was like, I don't have anyone to talk to. And I gave her my email address so she could email me, and she wrote me a couple of nice little letters, and that was the end of it. And the other teachers were like, oh, you can't do that. I was like, I don't care.
Yeah, like, that's another
I don't care. I'm going to do it because it's the right move.
I agree with you on that. That's another reason why I can't work for people, because I don't like that. I don't like
policies, like they're fake policies. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Okay, so
they're
I do have another question.
Anti-toasty policies. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. My next question for you actually goes back to the philosophy. You were saying before we were talking about Stoicism, and I said I have another question for you later. So funny. I know a lot about Stoicism this year from reading a lot about it. Don't know how to apply it. So it's like, it's one of those things that like in theory and in philosophy, it sounds incredible. How do you actively apply Stoicism? Like, what's an example in your life where you know how to strategize and use it? You know?
Let's take a couple of like the Stoic concepts and we'll see. And I'll tell you, I'll explain how I would personally apply them. So a really good one in Stoicism that I like is what I can control and what I can't control. And I think this is this is like fundamental, and this can be applied to almost everything you interact with or are exposed to. So if you can't control something, it is not worth your time to be worried about it, right? You can really only control yourself. So for me, anytime I'm in a situation, like if someone's being weird on the road, someone's being shitty on social media, my mom is having whatever it is. If before, like, especially with people who don't know about boundaries and assertiveness, it's so easy for us to be like, oh, this is my problem, right? I'm going to take this problem onto me. I'm going to do this, this, and this. You can't control any of that. And even if you're extra super toasty, empathetic, and you're like, no, I want to be involved. I want to you also get the option to protect yourself, right? Like you still get the option to like apply logic to whatever you're experiencing. So for me, what can I control and what can I not control is a really good application for how I think about things in Stoicism, or think about things like in my life that apply to Stoicism. So I really like that one. So any situation that comes up, can I control this? People will be like, why aren't you upset about politics? What can I do about it personally? Literally nothing. Okay. All I can do is live how I think a good person should live. And then I'll demonstrate that. Standard starts from the top or wherever you are, right? And that's literally all I can do. I can just learn for me and then exercise what I think is the right move. So that's a good one. What can I control and what can I not control? I ask myself that all the time. That's a Stoic ideal. I also like this one. You can pick the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And I like that one a lot too. So this really prevents a lot of like, maybe like what could be like some negative procrastinating, some laziness, some ennui. This is how like, I would be like, okay, what can I get done today that's like really significant? It'll help me tomorrow. And I can go to sleep and be like, good job, Kathleen. Right. Which is what anybody wants to do. You go to bed and you're like, how did I act today? And you're like, I was an asshole. So with this rule, I'm like, okay, did I mostly pick the pain of discipline today and not so much the pain of regret? Am I going to be extremely, extremely grateful tomorrow that I worked hard on this today? Yes, great. And then I'm asleep, right? So that's the second one that I try to apply every day. Pick the pain of discipline over the pain of regret. This is a good reason for fitness too. A lot of people be like, well, why are you, they think that well, first off, I need to remind everyone I'm doing a sport and I'm not just working out this way, right? Like I'm in a sport that I compete in. So my program is very focused on that. And some guys will be like, well, why don't you do this, this, and this? I'm like, kid up, because I'm doing a sport that you don't do. Like, don't worry about it. But my grandmother, Andrea, is 100 and my mom is like 72 and they're all there and they're like independent. And I'm like, all right, so I'm going to live a really long time, probably. I'm probably going to have this joyful young life and then outlive all my loved ones. So what I was thinking is I'm going to be so glad that I chose like to continue working out, to continue tracking my food and eating properly and resting and like prioritizing like the peaceful organization of like my home that welcomes me from like a day out or like some errands, whatever it is. So I want to live for when I'm like 100. Like when I'm definitely going to make it up there, unless something crazy happens. And then like, what if I outlive everybody and I want like a boyfriend or a girlfriend,
Yeah, you got to take
Wouldn't
care of
that
yourself.
Be cool?
So you're still,
like,
so you're still in the game. No, people, you
right.
can stay, if you put the effort in, you can stay in shape.
Absolutely.
Like I was telling you the other day, like, hey, I just went, through a depression and I'm not feeling great. And you said to me, in the private message, you're like, well, you still look great. And like, I think
you look sensational.
That I'm not saying like I look great necessarily. I'm not trying to come across like that. But what I am saying is I think the reason why I didn't like fall apart is because I spent so many years taking care of myself. So like,
100%.
So like if something does happen, if you do have an injury, if you do have a death in the family, a depressive episode where you can't work out, like I kind of like put my savings in the bank. So like if I let myself go for a month, it wouldn't be a catastrophe. Like I can get back out there and get back into it really quickly. And I have been getting,
what you're doing.
Yeah. Like I've been getting back into the gym and I don't feel like I've like gained so much weight or lost so much strength or anything.
No, you're a total babe.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. You are. So yeah, 100%. So that's number 2, right? That of like, stoicism to integrate into your life. There's one or two more. Let me think of like I like this one. Seneca says this, I think. He says, show, oh no, hold on. Okay, here's one. I think Seneca also said this, but maybe Marcus Aurelius said this. So they say, happy is the person who makes other people better by just being in their life. So I like, and this is sort of like picking the pain of discipline or regret, and then honing in on what you can control. If you can meet like a sort of moral equilibrium. So I'm not religious, but I have my morals are absolutely steadfast, and I try not to cherry pick, no hypocrisy. Like my morals are like, I kind of like to think like self is God, almost like, as far as I'm concerned, the only omniscient thing that I have is me, right? I'm the only watchful eye on my life.
I actually really like that because I've been kind of going through that myself. Like I've been trying to learn about different religions and I'm not sold on one. There are certain religions that I take bits and pieces from where like, of course, I like Hinduism for some reason. Like I take bits and pieces from that religion. I actually like some hot take, but there are some elements of Christianity that I do like, but the problem
100%.
is every religion that I study, I find a couple things that I'm like, I can't be sold because of these reasons. So I agree with you that it's like, I don't follow one religion, but I do take these elements and try to come up with my own moral code.
So right, so that you're your own little like mini like contained, like omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent being, right? And I just pretend that there's a Kathleen camera following me all over the place. So I don't want to piss off Kathleen, who's just me. Right? So I think that's kind of cool. So by that, if you're able to sort of master that, then I think you will find a lot of quiet, perpetual joy in the small benefits that people around you will have just by knowing you. So a lot of my friends will be like, you got me back in the gym. Some of my friends were like, I really loved how you maintained your house. That really touched me. And I started cleaning up the dishes in my sink. And then when I would come home from like my busy day, I feel so much better to be home. My space welcomes me. I know people who are like, I started cooking, like I make these little like protein muffins. They're very, very like macro friendly, and they have like pretty much no added sugar in them. People
That's
are like,
why I was giggling before when you said you have your students protein muffins. I'm like, only like a power lifter would be like, oh, my students have protein muffins instead of like what are Hershey's bars
candy or something. Yeah, no, absolutely not. They're not going to get any of that stuff in my house. So exactly. So I think that's another cute one. So just to remember that with your mastery of your behavior and your feelings, you can make other people better. And this is a joy engine. So you'll be like, oh, I feel something shitty will happen. And you're like, oh, it's okay. Because like, these people said that this made them feel good. And that makes me feel good.
I did. Yeah. Something like that did happen to me once, and it threw me off guard. And I was like really shocked. So I do comedy, and I would go to this one open mic in Central Jersey, and I didn't show up to that particular mic for a while. And then I went back there and I saw one guy that I knew there that he looked like kind of ripped. I was like, and I asked him, I was like, dude, you look like shredded. What? Like he was kind of like a little bit out of shape before. And I'm like, what did you do? And he was like, to be honest, he was like, I saw you posting your workout plan every day. And then he's like, and then I wanted to start working out. And I'm like, it blew my fucking mind, because in my head, I thought like I was annoying people by posting those. I'm like, am I coming across as arrogant or annoying by posting my workout?
I always worry about that. Right.
Yeah. So I was,
no, but you're
just to know that it had a positive effect on somebody was like, okay, that was worth it then,
That's Stoicism. I don't think people understand that is still Stoicism. That's exactly what Seneca and Marcus Aurelius wanted us to do, was to act in a way that improves the lives of others, because that is and I like to use the word engine, right? Something that sort of fuels itself. That's something that's like perpetual. Yeah. And I think that's really like, I mean, tell me, well, and not, I know you have depression, and that's kind of that's something interesting to talk about, at some point if you wanted, but like you tell me that you have a hard time like accepting yourself when there's people who have been touched by your sincerity and your hard work, right? And then their lives are better. I mean, have fun being pissed off, right? Because for me, I'm like, oh, beautiful. Right to sleep. Go right to sleep. And then there was one more. Well, they say to keep company that represents you, right? Yeah. Like don't hang out with people who you show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. That's a Stoic ideal. So that one's interesting. And then I think like I don't know. There's the what you can and can't control thing is very helpful for self-love, I think. And people don't understand Stoicism a lot, Andrea. I think people think that Stoicism is just like you're unfeeling and you don't react. That's not Stoicism.
No, yeah. I think from what I understand, it means you've felt the pain and you know exactly what that pain is, but you 100%. Can't let that pain control you. You might even still feel the pain as a Stoic. You just don't let it control your actions more.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. Right. You can 100% feel. So like, I can't say I'm good at Stoicism yet, because it's like maybe been 2 years since I've been like really getting into it. But I am really good at things like I'm very comfortable like being touched by like beauty or cute things. Like I will absolutely access like a little childish, excited like wonderment to like really feel the joy of like a beautiful painting or a great song or like a TV show that was made with a lot of love. I will no problem go there. So I think like, oh wait, hold on, I forgot what I.
You were you were saying you're not 100% there yet because you've been studying it for 2 years. Before you were talking about the paintings, you were saying that you can't call yourself an expert because you've still been studying it for 2 years, and then you said,
"Oh, okay." But yes, thank you, sweetheart. You're so cool. You were great listening. So, but I think if I am touched by something and I want to cry tears of joy, unless it's like a funeral or like there's strangers who will like be weird about it, I'm going to fucking cry, right? I'm going to cry because I'm touched. And what I see generally is most people, I just kind of teach other people. I end up just teaching other people to cry. Oh, maybe one or two people like, oh, what are you doing? Why are you crying? Why are you sad? I'm like, I'm not sad. I'm joyous. So, and then I'll teach other people to cry. So almost all my loved ones ever, and they're like, oh, I saw this beautiful movie. I'm like, yes. Because that's not stoic. That's not anti-stoicism. To allow yourself to feel something that was like art meant to elicit, feel away. Now, does this mean you go into a funeral and start? No, that's where stoicism comes in, right? Or if someone comes at you hot, someone's upset, and you stay calm and you try. That's what stoicism is. Not unfeeling forever.
We were talking about this on a podcast recently with a comedian. We were talking about applying stoicism in comedy. And a good example of this would be, as a stand-up comedian, we all go to these open mics, which are usually, I mean, not always, sometimes it's advanced comedians, but mostly beginner comedians. And a total beginner move from a comedian at like a show or an open mic is if they tell a joke and the audience doesn't react, the audience doesn't think the joke is funny, as the audience member, you can visibly see the comedian like getting insecure and then blaming the audience. They'll go like, well, you guys just are uptight. Like it's like a total. So me and my friends, like my comedian friends, we were talking about applying stoicism in this situation because a pro comedian would be able to handle the discomfort of that situation. Sure. Not that they don't feel uncomfortable, not that they don't maybe in their own mind feel like, not like they're not having thoughts of like, wow, am I a shitty comedian? Like I'm sure those thoughts are going on in their head.
Of course.
But rather than reacting and blaming the audience for that, they somehow are able to channel the energy in and move it into a different direction. And that's what separates 100%. A beginner from a pro. So that in comedy, that would be a perfect example of when to apply stoicism, you know?
What can I control and what can't I control, right? And then we still are doing some assertiveness there. Okay, that didn't land, but that's okay. I have other material coming up, right?
Exactly.
Like 100% straight up.
So many
stoicism.
Beginner comedians would let that just totally shift their energy into like, oh my, and then as the audience, you can see it. Like you can see it and you can feel it. And it's like, it's just like everything.
Now you're uncomfortable and now you feel bad for them. And you're like, oh, cool. This got less fun.
Yeah. So, okay. I do have some more questions for you. I usually stick to about an hour and I think we're hitting that mark. So before we leave, I do want to talk about relationships because that was something you emphasized that you were very passionate about. So I do have a couple questions. One is from a listener. It's from James Mac Comedy. James Mac Comedy wants to know, do you feel that couples should have hobbies separate or hobbies together?
Oh, that's really cool. That's interesting. I'm going to start with a little story about, I'll start with a little story and then I'll answer that. So I have a few, I didn't start studying just polyamory. I went very first to studying love. So I bought all of Helen Fisher's books. She's an anthropologist who spent her entire life studying love and intimacy and sex all over the world, through history and then all over the world. And she's done a bajillion MRIs. She's done trillions and trillions of surveys and stuff like that. And she has all these interesting statistics. Okay, so fine. So I started reading her. I mean, later on, did I read like The Ethical Slut and like some of the other like poly books? Absolutely, I did. But I started off with just love in its simplest form. And then we went off to like, like communication, like friendship, like, all these other like little branch offs before we even got to polyamory. So something that Helen says, she did like 5,000 MRIs or something on like a sample of people, and she found that this most we react to our loved one in the frontal lobe, the most we react, the most dopamine and like serotonin, and then like almost oxytocin, and then certainly adrenaline that we feel at any given time related to a loved one is when we're away from them and then we're reunited. That's the most powerful synapse that we have in here that involves like love and romance.
Right. So that would mean living with somebody could kill that. So I don't want to say kill that, but like, I'm sure you can kind of go more into this. Like, it kind of makes sense that so many people during the pandemic complained about having relationship issues because there was no separation.
100%.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Of course. So now that means that if we have separate hobbies, then you do your thing. We come back later. We went to dinner. Oh, hi, honey. Right. Or you have your friend group over here. So like, I don't play D&D, but I play Magic the Gathering like all the time. I've been playing Magic the Gathering since 2006. Big mistake. And then Michael plays D&D. It's not that I'm not into D&D, but like, it's funny. I feel like I get so much expression out of my week to week. I don't like feel like I need to make up a character to like explore this and this. I just don't necessarily feel that need. Though I would do one-offs 100%. But anyway, so he does that with like my high school friends. He's over there. Fine, right? And then like I have so many hobbies. I have little groups of friends and all different things. So then I go over here and do this. I just started playing disc golf with a friend. I have my powerlifting friends. So we have separate things, but then we like to do first person shooters and stuff together. So we will always come back and play Smash Brothers. We'll always come back and play Borderlands. We'll always come back and play like the new Doom or like,
I think I agree with you on that it shouldn't be one or the other. It should be a combination of both. Like you should have separate hobbies, but you also got to have some hobbies together. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I always say it's a good combination. Makes sense.
Well, and we have a golden retriever we're obsessed with. So like hobbies that involve him, like that's always going to be something we love together, right? Taking him to the farm, taking him to the park, and then our friends love him. So like we get a lot of joy together, just like exploring, this is Michael's first dog. I've had 4 golden retrievers, but he's never had one. So like Loki in and of himself becomes a hobby that we do together regardless.
I do have a question for you. It wasn't even on the list, but I just thought of it now. So since you said that you've studied, all different types of books about love, and you started with this basic one called Love. It's just called Love, right? Is that what you said?
No, Helen Fisher wrote, one is called Why We Love. One is called Why Him, Why Her. And the other one is like, the third one that's really big is like the history of infidelity and like why we stray. I think that's the other one.
Okay. So my question for you is, because you've obviously done a lot of research on this, how,
20 years.
After all your research, how would you now in your current time define love? What is love?
Okay. So we can do there's the three sort of tenets of love. One is romantic love, one is intimacy, and one is companionship. So these are sort of like a pyramid of elements that we would want in love. Okay. So now let's explore the romantic love. Is going to be like the initial like dopamine, adrenaline rush. I have a crush on you. You're kind of mysterious to me. I probably don't know all your ugly quirks. I don't know your history of being an asshole, right? I don't know any of that stuff. So the mystery is very sexy. We get to project what we want onto you, right? You're this mysterious stranger. And then we have a couple of fun nights. There's a lot of chemicals going on. The chemicals that are released in a lot of this, adrenaline, dopamine, some serotonin, for sure some oxytocin, especially when you're skin to skin. You get used to these, just like you get used to like heroin, like the drugs and heroin and cocaine.
So I'd be willing to bet, like before you explain the rest of your definitions, like your subcategories, this probably isn't love. Like this is what we think is love. Yeah.
Right. This is a lot of our lusty crush stuff. Right. So, and that's one element. Not that that's not a bad element to have, but that's one. Then we have intimacy. Intimacy is like sitting down face to face, or even next to each other. We're eating dinner. We're talking, asking questions. What is your opinion about this? What is your opinion about this? Oh, there's somebody at the gym who like really upset me, yada, yada, yada. And we're talking and we're interested in each other's well-being. I don't really care about politics very much because I can't control them. But like Michael's was always stoic. He's just like an expert. So he'll like calmly just tell me the goings on. And like, that's a really like nice thing that we do together. Like he informs me about, I kind of get his filter of like what's going on the planet. Like I appreciate that. So intimacy. And then this one is companionship. So this is like, we live together, we share bills. If we have kids, I've decided I don't want children. I was basically my parents' parent. So no. No. And I love kids anyway. I get to teach them all the time. So it's really cool. I get to help the village, and that's what I think I'm best at. So this is like, we have kids together. We have a house. We have to share things financially. We have to share like sort of like integrated families, potentially stuff like that. So perfect love is when we have all three of these.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can sort of really quickly, I think I'm pretty good at discerning like what's happening in certain things. So intimacy for me, that's always there. So all of my friends, my students, everyone, we always have intimacy. We're vulnerable. You can talk, ask questions, trust the other person's going to give you their like best insight. The other person cares. There's no assumption ever. You don't care about me. That would never happen. Right. Okay. So that's intimacy. So the romantic love, because I understand like the space factor, like having some time away from each other and then missing each other, I get to keep this a lot. I get to keep the romantic love. I get to keep the lust and the excitement. And again, that's from like a little bit of stoicism and then a little bit of understanding the value of being away from each other and having some of your own life, right? And then as far as the companion love, I mean, when I met Michael, I was in this gross relationship with this girl for like late high school and all of like college. She absolutely just tortured me. So when I met Michael, I moved in with him immediately. So we've been living together since 2006. So, and we knew right away, like, this is going to be fine. I always was able to like trust him, ask him questions. Like, I love maintaining a home just so like he can be comfortable. I mean, it's for me too. And like my students nowadays and my friends and family, but 100%, like it was so easy for me to be like, I love to like homemake. That's one of the reasons I'm not having kids. I like literally maintained our parents' like 4,000 square feet houses. So it's just like, okay, you guys are exhausting me. Like sharing money, responsibilities, no problem. I was way overexposed to that as a kid. So I think I'm very good at maintaining all three of these, and then knowing if we have to compartmentalize taking down whichever one it is. I don't mean to flip you off, but you know what I'm saying. I think I'm very good at that. So I think love is going to be a combination of all three of those things, or you very specifically select, like for your friends, we select just the companionship and the intimacy, right? We don't have romantic love with them. But then there's going to be some people who don't have any of these and they just have companion love, right? These are people who are in like a loveless marriage, right? They don't really talk to each other. They don't have intimacy and they're definitely not having like hot, passionate sex. And then there's some people who don't have the companionship, but they have these things, right? And like, this is like, maybe like someone you're pursuing and maybe they have a situation they can't quite get past. So you don't have the companionship yet, but there's at least some potential. So I think I'm very good at like
balancing all the three. I would maybe throw this one in there. I don't know if this could be lumped into one of these three categories. Maybe I don't know. But something that I've personally learned over the years is that when I was younger, I used to only understand the first one, the one where you...
Me too.
The one where you miss the mystery and the lust and that.
100%.
And like you said, it was like a drug that I became addicted to. And
Of course.
once
It is addicting.
the quote unquote honeymoon phase, whatever you want to call it, once that would pass by,
Sure.
I would
Yeah, you
run
get
away
used to
from
it.
the other two. So I would also personally add in there, and again, this might just be something that
It might just be one of them. Yeah.
one of the things that gets lumped in there is learning to accept the person for actually who they are. Because sometimes who you feel you're getting in the mystery phase, in that honeymoon phase, could be, like you said, a projection of yourself, or it could be their best self because they're trying to get laid. You know what I mean? Like
they have they have no faults, right? They're going to put on their best behavior as far as you're concerned.
Yeah.
So one year, intimacy, probably, sweetheart. That's where that one would fall.
Yeah,
is
like
really like having a proper expectation.
Like, you know, when you went on the first date and they were like their most confident, best self, and then suddenly, you know, 8 months down the road, they're farting on the bed. They're, you know, they're sick. They have a cold. They're in a depression. I think when I was much younger, I would like feel like, oh, I didn't want this part. Right. Let me get out of here. And that would cause a problem for me, because then I would then rely on the first one to get my emotional validation
100%
met, and it ended up becoming like something toxic. But it is good to know that part of these three is still considered love in a way, and it's still important to have that, but you can't just only have that, you know.
That would 100% probably be lumped under intimacy, number one, but then also the companion thing, right? Where you say, okay, we're not on our best, like perfect, like dressed up first date behavior anymore, right? Like now, like you're just living life, you're going to get sick. You're going to eat something you don't like and have to spit it out in a paper towel. And like, that would gross me out so much. But like, you're like, okay, I know, sorry, there's too much rind on that, like on that steak or whatever it is. Right. Or like, oh, that person, like that deaf person has like, my partner has diarrhea and I can hear it. Like, do I want to judge them, or would I like them to be okay with when I inevitably have diarrhea?
And I guess that's where the separating your hobbies comes in, because like, in order to balance out those three, I'm sure separating hobbies and leaving for a little bit kind of gives them time to take care of those things. Like, not that you can't help them take care of it together. That's another thing. You can and you should help them through hard times. But I think probably to keep that first part alive and exciting, like having your own separate hobbies probably helps with that, I would imagine.
100%. I think it does. Yeah. Time, structured time away from each other, I think is really, really powerful. And that's why polyamory work. Like Michael's already very busy. Like we're both very busy. So my boyfriend, Matt, I've been with him for 4.5 years. He's sleeping right now. But, so like, and then Michael's never, you end up studying jealousy a whole bunch. So, and then jealousy is something you can also like, you can nip it in the bud with stoicism, right? And then understanding like the ego, because our ego's job is to protect us when we're feeling icky. But if we understand that, we can be like, hold on, this isn't threatening you, calm down. A lot of people will feel jealousy and then they don't step over it and say, okay, why do I feel this way? They just say, I feel jealousy, I'm done with this, right? No. You have to step over that and then be like, okay, why am I feeling jealous? What is my ego trying to tell me? So Michael has never had a problem with any of that. Michael was raised beautifully. He had a great family. He's confident, self-assured, lovely, hardworking, amazing. Mm-hmm. So when all of this was sort of coming, this has all kind of been happening like the entire time we've been together. So this wasn't like, I didn't just spring this on him, right? That this has been going on. Like Michael is busy and active enough in stuff. Like it would be, and I had a shit childhood, right? So and even though I guess I sort of have a lot of like social needs, but I also I have a lot of energy for like, this is just effortless for me, right? To like make friends and address your needs, and it's like basically like nothing. So it's just easy. And that's a part of me. So it would make sense for me to not expect, a lot of people expect everything from one person, right? And that's something that we didn't always do in the history of love. And that's just how modern marriages became. So this also is quite the killer of the intimacy and the romantic love, right? An absolute killer of that. So if you can this is why I don't suggest polyamory to everybody. Absolutely.
I was gonna say that was like literally my last question to end the podcast. I was gonna mention that I did want to talk about our differences of why I choose monogamy and why you choose polyamory. Because I feel like, speaking of politics, I feel like this is one of those things that for whatever reason has become very politicized. Like whenever I try to look up anything about polyamory versus monogamy and like understand the difference, I've noticed it's almost like this black and white, like fuck you to the other
Very
side
straight.
type of thing.
So
and I'm
weird.
like, all right, you and I have a lot in common. I thought it would be cool. And it's one of my goals on the podcast is to be able to like not be so politicized on these issues. Just like have a normal conversation about our differences.
Absolutely.
Like, hey, why do you like monogamy? Why do you like polyamory? So I'm kind of curious to know, why did you decide that this was a better lifestyle for you?
Sure. Well, again, so I've never really understood monogamy. So there's no, I don't need my person to be, unless my person wants to fraternize with somebody famously toxic who like is has like insidious tactics. I'm fine with like sharing. Like I've had a couple of my female friends like be with Michael, and I've been in other poly relationships, and I trusted those people and I loved it. It was fine. Totally great. I also experienced compersion, which is the opposite of jealousy. So I studied it a little bit, but I always kind of, I understood it as far as the ego goes. So compersion is where if you see other people enjoying each other, somebody feeling good, like laughing, kissing, whatever, you feel good. So I get secondhand joy all the time from other people. So because I've managed to integrate that into like my just everyday thought process, I don't have a lot of ego-y, jealous, like envy, like suspicious, like, oh my gosh, you're looking for this, and you know, like I don't experience any of that. So if people are good and you're in pleasure, Kathleen is happy. If you're bad and you're seeking pleasure to hurt people, that's not okay. So for me, I just loving one person is insane to me. That's just, I love so many people. I'm like literally in love with like probably 12 people and like crushing on like 2,000. Like I just, it's just my receiving of other people is like very, very open and toasty, which is why we need boundaries in Stoicism, right? So I don't get taken for a ride. Yeah, this was right. This was, and I'm like, and I don't want to like cheat, right? Like I don't want to like hurt people, well, I'd never want to hurt anybody. So exploring this and then being able to explain this and understand this was really, really good for Michael and me. And there were some long-term relationships I had where they were a little too much in our face. One of them, he's writing the musical with me. He was in my band for a long time. Oh my God, I was in 5 bands before COVID, by the way. I'm like so glad I'm not in anymore. Oh my gosh. I'm glad you're having fun. I'm like, please give me a few years before I'm in another band. Let me write my musical.
No, I understand. I right now I'm in a few bands and I am in the process of dwindling it down to just one. It's not that I don't like being in multiple bands. I do like being in multiple bands. It's just that I don't want to do a shitty job at 10 things. I want to do a great job at one thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So anyway, that was always going to be just like a lifestyle I can manage. Again, also, so like it's really easy for me to recognize like patterns and like the needs of people. And if you mention something one time, like I'll remember it. So addressing people's needs and like remembering like their history and why they would do stuff, those are details that I just suck right up. So it is really easy for me to like remember. And then my queue can get really big too. So if I'm like, oh, this person did this, I'll make sure that I drop off this for them and then thank them about this. And then later on, I'll ask them about this after they do this interview. That's all very easy for me to do too. So that kind of stuff makes this like, I mean, you know, kind of like a bone, like I have like polyamory bonuses, right? And like, just in like the way I think and the way I feel. So this makes it, again, very easy. A lot of people want to do poly because they're like horny or they're bored or they met someone they kind of like, but it's just the romantic love part. And then they don't really know how to integrate it. And then people don't know exactly how to be like assertive with their significant others. So they don't know what the other person's boundaries are. And like, and I know a lot of people who are like depressed or anxious or like not really like in control of their feelings and they want to be poly. And I think that's really silly. I also don't really think you should do it with children. I think it's something that you do, like if your life's goal is to explore love as as a trajectory. Like that's something I wanted to be so fucking seasoned and experienced in like the love field. I was like, yeah, I'll do a lot of this stuff. Even though, I know some of it's hard. Like I do a lot of work. I do so much emotional work, like every day. But the other option would be for me to, I don't know what, be like bored. And then like, I have a really responsible relationship with drugs. I'm like, what do I want to have like been bored and like gotten more into this, or like started doing hobbies that were like less good for me. Right. Like if I wanted to start, would I just be like touring and then trying to like suck up fans? Like, I don't even know. So that was why I picked this.
That makes a lot of sense. Like based, again, when it comes to these things, I think when it comes to like monogamy or polyamory, I think it's not so much that there's like one answer that's perfect. I think I read this quote recently and it really resonated with me. It was about government structures. It was like a quote about all these different government structures. And I kind of apply it to all different things that have different avenues you could take. And it was every good idea has an evil twin. And like basically what that means is like, it means like every path you choose will also come with its set of difficulties. So for me, I believe that anybody should be able to pursue the relationship style that works for them. Like, I don't think it's like one is perfect and one is, not. I think it's like they're both good and they both have positive qualities. They both have negative qualities, which is the avenue that's going to work for you as an individual and be the best solution for you. For me, because I speaking of jealousy, I'm like low key jealous of how not jealous you are. Like, if that makes any sense. Like, I wish I was like that, because I'm definitely someone who has always struggled with like the anxious attachment style type of thing.
Yeah. So I think, and that's our parents' fault. Usually that's our parents' fault.
So I think for me, that's probably why I would pick monogamy, because I think I 100% agree with you about the idea that it is too much pressure. And maybe possibly one of the reasons why a lot of marriages don't work is because you're expecting all your needs to be met from
that's very modern, right? And that's very modern.
I 100% agree with that. Modern. I think for somebody like me who has anxious attachment style, I think if I diverted those needs from other partners, it wouldn't allow me to figure out how to be alone. And that's just for me personally. You know what I mean? Because like,
that's awesome. I
totally like, I'm the type of person, if my partner doesn't feel like having sex that day, I'm like devastated. Like I'm like I internalize it and I take it personally.
I'm disgusting.
So I think if I were to like then be like, well, I have my other partner to take care of it. At the end of the day, I personally wouldn't be figuring out how to just be alone and be okay with nothing. So I think that's why for me, it would be a problem. Yeah,
totally. So some of the, I absolutely agree with you. And this is a great example of where, you don't, then don't be, don't be poly. I was having an issue with being told to only love one person, like over and over again, and be intimate with only one person. It's not going to happen. Literally never going to happen. So, and this is where Helen Fisher was really helpful. She goes into like literally the history of love, like starting at the beginning of humans. So we were, for the longest amount of time, we were hunters and gatherers, right? And the men would hunt side to side and they would hunt side to side. And then the women would be gathering like berries and nuts and stuff like that. And then they would be raising the young, like face to face, right?
Yeah.
And this was just in a village. And you would kind of sleep with like, you would like become impregnated with like the sort of highest quality men, and then the whole village raised the kids. So there was no divorce or anything. You would just grab your gathering tools and you go to another tent, right? And that was it. There's no divorces. Everyone takes care of the kids. So then we started to have like agricultural time after that. And with agricultural time, now we're living in like harsher conditions. We have livestock, right? We have like we have the food, so we're the ones getting paid. So then what we needed to do was, hopefully, and you remember you weren't traveling very far, right? So you would hopefully have a neighbor who had a daughter and they had a cow that you wanted, and her parents would marry her off to you, and you would live together and he would get your cow and whatever. And then, you could use his property and, and then you guys could have kids. And remember, this is when infant death rate was very, very high. The mortality for the mom was very high. So you were freaking lucky to make it through like one season with your kid alive, right? So no, our hierarchy of needs were not met back then. So you needed to be married off to somebody, and they didn't go into it with this romantic ideal, right? They're just like, this person's going to be my partner. They still do a lot of these arranged marriages and like Hinduism in India and stuff like that, right? And you go in with the expectation. A lot of people don't have the expectation proper. So you would need to go into that and you're like, okay, they're not even thinking about whether or not they're going to be thinking about happiness is something that we get to do now that our hierarchy of needs is met. And it's really, really difficult, right? When you're fighting for survival, you're not even thinking about this shit.
Oh yeah. That's actually something to think about too. The fact that we can even choose whether we want to be monogamous versus polyamorous means we're probably living pretty good.
Way ahead.
Yeah. We're probably living pretty good,
We're way ahead. So fine. So that was the agricultural life. And then we had like the industrial age. And then we really wanted like farmers to be working, right? Because we need you 9 to 5 and we don't like the hunters anymore. So this is where people with ADHD or people with more dynamic like energy are being like snuffed out of jobs and stuff. And that's really uncool. So then we have to have like, you can only afford your family, right? And there's not that much property you can have. So once again, we're sort of forced into these situations where you're marrying like someone who can take care of you. And it's only been since Romanticism, which was an art form and not a philosophy in the 1800s, that we started to, commune with nature, take long romantic walks. We start thinking about the soulmate. We start thinking about, maintaining a mystery. We're not into the intimacy part yet. We just have the two, and there's no this one, right? There's no intimacy there. And then of course with like the onslaught of Christianity, which likes Stoicism, but they started to do just more and more like misinterpreting. So it's like stricter and stricter and just goes for like, whoever's in charge's ideals. And then this is where we started to have like expectations where you are madly in love with your partner, your soulmates. One person, they can do everything for you. They're your whole life. All these sort of expectations, which again came from a fucking art form, like an art period, not a philosophy. So Romanticism has totally killed a lot of our expectations. The movie The Notebook killed marriages. People divorced because they were like, I don't feel the spark. I'm like, you could go to the gym, eat food together, talk a little more, watch a TV show together, watch whatever sexy TV show you want to watch.
I have a hot take about that too. Like, sure. I feel like 100% what you're saying about The Notebook and this huge romantic thing.
It's only 200
I feel like
old.
our society is really big right now on like never settle, look for perfection. And I'm like,
trash.
I trash. Like, hot take. I think you should settle. Like, and I don't mean that as disrespect towards my current partner. I don't mean it like that at all. I just mean that if you're constantly looking for the perfect partner, you're never going to find them. Like,
you're not picking them off the shelf.
I think dating apps, like the modern way of dating, has also done that as well, because it's like,
that's true.
Because you have so many options at your fingertips now. How could you possibly pick one? Like, so my theory about that is like, perfect. I have a relationship now, but for like single men or women who are kind of like going through that process of like, how do I pick one? Sure, make a list of what you want. Absolutely. But understand that you're not going to meet 100% of that list. It's not possible.
That is so correct.
You're going to be disappointed at some point. You know what I
I
mean?
100% agree with you. So another person I like who taught me about love, his name is Alain de Botton, and he is a Swedish philosopher. And he does a lot of really cool lectures on love. And his whole thing is about adjusting your expectations and like remembering. So he has a lecture called Why You Will Marry the Wrong Person. And all he says is basically like, marry someone who's good enough. Marry someone you like. You can only be good enough. This is where Stoicism comes into play. You can't control everything. Just do your best. And if you do your best, that's the end. So marry someone who's good enough, who you can tolerate. and then you can make all three of these love attributes work.
Yeah, I think it's more so about like having your lifestyle values line up than it is about like you can't find the hottest person who is the smartest person who is the strongest person who always has expectations. It's just like you can't. Trash. You're going to have to, at some point there's going to be compromises. Like, so for example, I'll give an example within my own relationship. Sorry to my boyfriend, but when I first met my boyfriend, I was kind of turned off by the gaming thing. Like I was turned off by the video game thing. I had a negative perception in my head that guys who played video games were lazy. Like, and that's what I thought.
Yeah, okay.
Like I thought growing up, like,
sure.
Oh, guys who play video games past, 12 years old, they're just lazy. Right. Right. So when I got into this relationship, if I had my perfect list of things I wanted at a guy, one of those things on the list might have been not a gamer. Right. Okay. Right. So when I started dating him, I had to look at that and be like, well, wait a second. We have the same life values. Cool. We're sexually attracted to each other. He's a great musician. He's an honest person. Yeah. He has all these great things. And I'm going to sit here and say, because he plays video games after 8 p.m. Like, I mean, granted, 100%. If this was something that controlled his life where he wasn't drumming or he wasn't doing all those other things, that could be an issue. No,
he's talking 12 hours.
Am I going to not make
now.
That compromise over something so that's stupid? You know what I mean?
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's just like crazy to me.
These are the tickets, I think, to having realistic expectations in your friendships and your relationships, and which will just bring, if you have a good solid expectation, if you have like a lot of your like morals, if your moral compass is in play, and like you know what you can control and you can't control, there's no reason that you can't find ways to cultivate love.
Yeah.
I think.
And not only that, by learning to, going back to the gaming thing, by learning to accept like the gaming thing, I actually put myself in his shoes and I actually started gaming with him. Like I started I went in with this perception about what, and it's funny because I used to play video games when I was younger. So I like, how could I even say, like, I used to love playing them, but I went in with this perception that like, oh, gaming guys are lazy. And like then
my adult dating partners, if they're playing games, they might be
gamers are lazy. Sure. Right. I went in with that perspective. And then I finally was like, you know what, let me try to understand what he's doing. So sometimes I play with him. I'm like, actually, this is fun. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, and they're beautifully made. I mean, games are basically like movie, like the same, sometimes even bigger budgets than movies and TV shows, and they're absolutely art forms.
Yeah, they have music. They have incredible music. They have
they're made with so much love.
They have stories and artwork. Like you said, it's like, it actually is a beautiful creation. So as long as it doesn't like take total control of their life where they're not doing anything else, it's a
moderation.
It's a total normal way to spend your time.
Exactly. Back to Stoicism with moderation. Yeah. That's another big one. I love to moderate. This is how we work through, drugs and fitness and romance and sex is all with moderation too.
Yeah.
We can enjoy gaming in moderation, all that stuff.
Yeah. We can even enjoy heroin in moderation. No, I'm just kidding.
Apparently they can. It's all measured in Europe. Apparently some people can do it in moderation.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding though. All right. So
let's leave that alone though.
So we're getting to the end of the podcast. Before we leave, is there anything else you want to go over or talk about, or have you pretty much covered it? Is there anything else you want to say to the audience?
No. I loved this. This was so fun. I'm a big fan of yours. I like you a lot. I think you're really cool. And I always loved Duff. I thought he was cool. Always a good, talented boy. Everyone really likes him.
Yeah. No.
And then I'm like sort of like I do like some secret comedian stuff too, but like I don't go out and do it. Like,
you write comedy? You're a comedian?
Sometimes.
Have you ever done an open mic?
No, but here's what I did do. No. But here's what I did. I thought this would be so funny. I went on Logic Pro and I downloaded on Splice a whole bunch of like laugh tracks and like applause. And then I just did like, I have a whole list of like, I have like probably an hour's worth of material. So I just did like 20 minutes worth. And then I added in the laughs and the applause.
Dude, you
it
should,
was so funny.
I think at some point you should try an open mic with some of your material. I feel like it's something that a lot of people, they're like, no, I don't want to do that. I think it's worth it for everybody in the world to do it like once. Yeah. I just think it's, if you have jokes that you wrote and I just think it's a good experience. And again, it's a good way to practice stoicism, because when you're up there, there's a lot of emotions going through your body, like lots of emotions. So I think it's like a beautiful way to practice applying stoicism. It might be the only place in my life I know how to do it. Anyways, so that's it. This is episode 77. Again, this is Kathleen Kozak. For those of you who enjoyed the podcast, don't forget to leave a comment on anything we talked about any of the subjects we went over today. Don't forget to hit subscribe, hit like. Where can they find you? I'll put a link to your Instagram below if they want to like quickly find you, like when your musical comes out or if they want to find anything else about yours. But where can they find you?
My public one. You can do Vox Music Studios, LLC, New Jersey. So you'll find that's that my main Instagram, not the private one, not Gentle Clemency. That one is just for powerlifting, which means my butt cheeks are in it. So I keep that one private.
I'm not sure where to go anymore because I'm like, one of your accounts was hacked. Like, I'm so confused.
So I fixed that, right? I know I fixed that, and then I changed the name. So that's the one that I made my business account. I had a business Instagram like 2 years ago, and they just deleted it. It was really confusing. So I'm just making this one so Vox Music Studio is my business and public account, and then Gentle Clemency is my private powerlifting account.
Okay.
And then I'm Kathleen Kozak on Facebook, and then I don't really have much material on YouTube actually, but I have I don't know. You could just follow. Instagram would be awesome. And then I guess eventually, I'm sure we'll be definitely making a YouTube for like the musical.
Yeah, no, when your musical comes out, I would definitely love to check it out. So that's incredible. All right, so that's it, everybody.
I would love to have you.
Yeah, episode 77, Pranzata podcast. I hope you guys had a great time. I certainly had a good time. Have a good night or day, guys. Bye.
Bye.